live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. On We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Good evening and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasted live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South, in Mississippi, where I always like to say the air is just a little bit cleaner and the grass is just a little bit greener. Mississippi, a country town, a state with less than 3 million people. There are more people in Chicago than there are in the entire state of Mississippi. Mississippi, where we're all related to one another. Blacks and whites are related to one another. When we call you my brother, we don't mean that just because you are the same ethnic group that I am. Many times it's because you're actually related. You see, at one time, there were more African Americans in Mississippi than there were Europeans. At one time, the Choctaw Nation roamed freely in the state of Mississippi. If you go up to Kosciuszko in Philadelphia, Mississippi, to the Golden Moon Hotel up there where the Choctaw Reservation resides, you'll find some of your native brothers and sisters right there in Mississippi. You know, I recall as a boy that we would play baseball against the Choctaw Indians, especially on the 4th of July. I recall it. I never got a chance to go to the games, but I recall that they were having the games. Now, the reason that I never had a chance to go to the game is because my mother believed that we should not celebrate the 4th of July, that we should go to the field and chop cotton. And we had 100 acres of land or more, and she decided that we should chop cotton right next to the main highway, Highway 16, running out of Canton, Mississippi, all the way up to Carthage and beyond. She decided that we would chop right there beside the road so everybody could see us chopping cotton on the 4th of July. And she said, and I thought it was the most cruelest thing in the world for people to be flying up and down the highway, drinking beer and hollering and screaming and celebrating. And they would holler at me out there in the field. It was so embarrassing. I did not understand what she was trying to teach. And so, you know, we have these Native American relatives that are up there in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and many of them that are there escaped the Great March of all times. And the Great March of all times was better known as the Trail of Tears. And that's where Mississippi declared that there would be no Indians in Mississippi. You're either going to be black or you're going to be white. And so families were divided right down the middle. Brothers and sisters were classified differently. Some were classified white, some were classified blacks. And all of the Indians that didn't get to go on that great march hid out in what we call the swamp, down on the banks of the Pearl River where no human beings were residing. You see, when it rains, you can't get down in there anyway. Down on the banks of the Pearl Rivers where my ancestors hid out to keep from going to Oklahoma City on the Great March. And so I come up with all of that background and that lineage that tells me a lot of different things. Tells me, one, that on the 4th of July I ought to go to work, and I ought to go to work somewhere somebody can see me working. Does me no good to be on the back 40 working, and nobody knows that I'm working. It tells me that I should set a tone. I should say that, we should do things that are important. We ought not celebrate holidays that have not in any way benefited us. We have nothing to celebrate. So what we're going to celebrate is trying to get this cotton ready to bloom, so we can lay it by in late September or August sometime, whenever Dr. Henderson will tell me what time it was in a minute. And so that's the ethics that we need. That's the history and the lineage that we come from. Hard working, striving, overcoming, against all odds people. Now we have some that they declared and described on soldier stories being geeges, that they want to play the band and they want to drink and they want to get drunk and they want to appease and clown for the master. That is not who we are nor what we do. And so we have shows like this designed to share with you a little bit about how it was in Mississippi, where we come from. Because as many say, if you don't know where you came from, you have not a chance of knowing where you're going. And we clearly are a lost people today. Now, if you're watching this show on Facebook, we want you to go on and share this program with your friends and family. We want you to hit the donate button. And we want you to share, send us stars. We want you to do all of that because we need your help down here in Mississippi. If you're sitting up in your comfortable bedroom or living room up in New Hampshire, where life and the standard of living is good and everybody's got enough to eat and everybody's business is doing good and all their children are in school and you want to reinvest in the community, check out Mississippi. Why don't you come and help We Believe Digital Broadcasting Studio grow up and become mainstream? Why don't you invest in that? You're always talking about the fact that you're against welfare and you're against all kinds of handouts, etc. And this is what we were talking about. You always declare that a man can pull himself up by his own boots, and until Martin Luther King so aptly put it. How can a bootless man pull himself up? How can a man with no breeches hook up his suspenders? It's just impossible to do. If you enter this race and you're 400 years behind, you're going to be behind for a long, long time, for years to come. And so, let me get back. If you're watching us on YouTube, then we want you to hit the subscribe button. We need you to subscribe to this channel, to our network. We've got a campaign to increase the subscribers on YouTube because we see that as an open path that we can build a business, not dependent upon the local economy, and make a difference and do good at the same time. What a wonderful theory. So if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. Help us out. Now, if you're watching us on We Believe Digital platforms, our very own platform, because when we started this journey, we didn't set out to build a page. We set out to build a network. That's right. We envisioned one day that We Believe Digital would be a network that rivals Showtime and all of those Netflix and Roku TV and Prime Video and all of those things. We think we can do that too. But it's going to be difficult to do it if you're 400 years behind unless you get some help from those that have been benefited from your labor. So we need you to consider that. Go to WeBelieveDigital.com and look at all of the categories that are there for you to enjoy. Some 12 different categories, from inspiration, hot topics, sports, lifestyles. You click on one of those categories and you're able to watch all of those great shows in that category. If you want to see episodes of this show, go under hot topics and scroll down there, and you'll be able to see the very first show that my co-host and I, Dr. Henderson, put on. You'll be able to enjoy that very first show, and you'll be able to see how we've progressed as a studio, how we moved from a small space and webcams, and how we moved into an initial setup that we enjoyed, and where we are today. You see the progress that we're making. It's time for you to chip in. If you're out there and you're Mr. Bloomberg and you say that you really believe in minority businesses having an opportunity and a chance, then, why don't you help us build out this studio, this platform? Why don't you invest in a business that has history in struggling but trying to make it, got a good business plan and a good staff, able to move to the next level? Just need you to come sit beside us, pull up beside us, join us. If you out there and you Byron Allen and you buying up all of the networks in the world, and I appreciate that, and I like what you're doing. I believe African Americans ought to control as much media as they possibly can, but don't forget us here, down here in Jackson, Mississippi. You see, I was interviewed today by a reporter from the New York Times, spent an hour talking about Jackson and this water problem and this water crisis. There's more than a water crisis going on in Jackson, Mississippi. There's a deprivation of economic opportunity going on in Mississippi. Specifically, black businesses don't have a chance. You see, when you reside in the poorest state in the nation and you happen to be African American, then you got a Herculean challenge in front of you just to move up into middle class. I heard my co-host say just a moment ago before we came on this show that we work so hard and we work this way because he never wants to see poverty again a day in his life, because he realized and recognized and lived through what poverty really means. And our children today don't understand that at all. Now, if you're on We Believe digital platform and you see down there it says We Believe Radio, click We Believe Radio and enjoy some of the finest program music you'll ever hear. Advertise with us. We need your help. So I'm going a little bit long, so I'll stop here and I'll pick up on some of this a little bit later on in the show, because there's a lot more I want to say to you about what you can be doing to help. And I know you're listening and I know you're out there. And so African Americans control the 8th largest economy in the world, and we're the poorest divided people in the world. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Dr. Henderson, it's always good to have you in the studio, and I know that you've been busy. I was with you when you spoke in Vicksburg last Saturday night and did a great job with that crowd, and you were one of the most sought-after speakers in the whole country. How have you been, sir?
Well, I've been doing fine, sir, and I appreciate your support. You were in Vicksburg with us, and we did enjoy your speech, because you had the most important part. You were talking about business success. And my job was to tell the people how to get prepared before you get in business. A lot of people don't know what to do. They just say, I'm going to start a business. And they fail quickly. A year or two, they're gone. And you told them how to do it. And even if they fail, learn from the mistakes and start again.
Absolutely.
That's all life is all about.
So, Doc, I was introducing to our viewers a little bit about our Mississippi history, and I went back and talked about, the Great March, and I talked about the divide, and I talked about the fact that Mississippians are basically related. That I believe you have white relatives, don't you?
I do. I was told that, and I've seen them, talked to them, and most of them have disappeared because they moved to other states. Many of them are old and dead, and their kids and grandkids come back every now and then, once a year, once every 2 years, some every 3 years, to visit. And I told you and others many times, they don't visit the old homes anymore. They all meet in hotels in Clinton, Madison, Pearl, and places like that. And some of those that are not 100% invisible will ease down at night and visit some of them their old black relatives. But many of them have husbands and wives, and they haven't told them yet that they have black family members in Mississippi.
Wow.
They have not told them, and it's probably good that they have not. That's a good way to lose a husband or wife.
I guess, but you can't lose your children.
No, you can't.
So the deal is this, Doc. I guess when I said that we classified people either black or white, there was some truth in that.
Oh, yes, most certainly.
Yeah. And so those relatives that got classified as white don't want to come back.
No, they don't. At least they don't want the white folks in Hinds County and Warren County and other areas that knew of their mothers and fathers to see them. And that's not good for their future, nor their economics, and not for their reputation, because they are white people now with black ancestry, and they want to keep it that way so they can continue to live in the suburbs, still have those good jobs, executive positions in banks and with the government and so forth. And they are living a good life, and I don't blame them. They are doing what they need to do to survive and be productive in a non-democratic society.
So given the opportunity, what I hear you saying is given the opportunity to leave the black experience, you would opt to leave.
No, I wouldn't opt to leave, no.
Okay, but you said they didn't want to come back.
No, they didn't, because they wanted to be in the environment that would keep them feeling positive. Because when you are faking and saying that you are not what you really are, according to the psychiatrists and other literature that I've been reading, you have an inner feeling that you are not doing the right thing. You begin to hate yourself, and you wonder why you are doing that. Am I doing it because I want to be accepted? Am I doing this because I want to have more economic clout? Do I really hate myself? Do I hate my relatives? Possibly not. But many people like that are not strong enough to say who they are and not worry about what people say. That's a hard thing to do when you have an opportunity to go to what I call the promised land.
You call it the promised land.
For some. That's what it is for some.
I get it. And Doc, I guess that philosophy was adopted by Du Bois.
Of course.
And when he talks about the tent, who is he talking about?
Well, he's talking about those black folks that the parents ought to send to college so they can become lawyers and doctors, engineers, and individuals like that, so they can have more clout and be more acceptable to the white people during his period. You know, he was around in the early 1900s talking about that stuff, between 1900 and 1910, where he worked hard. He was a hard-working man, one of the best educated blacks in America at that time. And he was a great researcher, so he had the time and the energy to do what he needed to do. And he wanted black folks to know that they didn't have to be hard-working industrialists. They needed to get that education so they can be more appealing and acceptable to white folks. Now, so, that's the bottom line.
I get that. So what was he saying should happen to the 90%?
He didn't care nothing about the 90%. And the man that cared was old Booker T. Washington. And they fought with each other all the time, verbally and in writing. And I've read their literature on both sides. They did not like each other publicly.
So is the talented 10th concept similar to just me and mine? My kind, when people say you're my kind, I'm more worried about me and mine. Is that the talented?
Basically, those are the young people, black people, starting in the early 1900s. That one or two, would go to a white college like Harvard or Yale or Princeton. They didn't have affirmative action then, but those students were usually already a college graduate from some black college. And when they would go to these so-called white schools, they wouldn't give them the full course credits that they deserved. So they had to go and, as an undergraduate, pass some undergraduate course or major, and then get in the master's or the PhD program.
Wow. Now we're talking about this because you got to work through this.
Oh, yeah.
Jones said you got to walk it out. But you got to work through it. Now, currently, our community is divided. And it's divided, it's obvious, it's evident. I watched our city council meeting the other day, and I listened to our board of supervisors meeting, and we're just divided. We're at each other's throat. We're turning on each other at a rate in a method like I've never seen before. We're doing it publicly. This divide was created. And so we got to walk through this thing and see how this is occurring. How is it that in 1968, when a black man met a black man on the street, that they embraced one another, that they gave each other the black power signal, that they said that you are my brother, that I'm black and I'm proud. And in 2023, we're killing each other at an alarming rate. It help me understand what's happening here.
Well, there's nothing happened but that old demon that's in black and white people. You find that the black people are locked out of the economic structure to the point where they don't feel they're able to compete. And they have a real reason to do that, because they were miseducated. They were not in a position to have the economic wherewithals to get the training they needed. So they went to these inferior schools, and I went to one many years ago, and you just picked up what you could. And then when you got into the mainstream, you couldn't compete when you got to the point where you wanted to do something that was significant academically until you learn how to do it. And that's why so many poor black and white students start in college and drop out 2 or 3 times, change the major 2 or 3 times, because they are fishing, trying to catch that fish that's going to give them an opportunity to live on. You know, when you are fishing, you want to catch the big fish, one that you can feed yourself and your family with. But when you don't know what's under the water, you just have to search and wait. Sometimes you get a bite, sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Now we're up against a commercial break, and I'm going to come back, and I want you to help me understand what's happening to us as a people. 3 African-American college presidents have lost their jobs in Mississippi in the last year.
You mean backwards? Black females?
And males.
That's right.
I want you to help me understand what kind of decline and deterioration are we facing. I remember when John Peoples was president, I thought he was president of Jackson State forever. And Boyd was president of Alcorn forever. I need to understand what's happening to us. Why are we in this spiral, this downward spiral as a people? We got to stop this skid.
Okay, let's get to it.
We're going to go to a commercial break, and we're going to come back after that and continue this conversation. So enjoy these commercials, support this program, and we'll be right back.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South, down in Mississippi, where I always say the air is just a little bit cleaner and the grass just a little bit greener. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm not trading Mississippi in for any place else in America, but we got a lot of work to do. The work that was started by my father and his father and your father and their fathers has almost been for nil. And so now we have the need to look at that and see if we can turn the tide. Now, the deal is this. I was asking Dr. Henderson, you know, how do we get this great divide in our community? And it is destroying everything we touch. Now, Dr. Henderson,
Yes.
We've lost 3 African American presidents of black universities in less than a year. When black college presidents were there longer than the football coach. What is going on?
Well, the real deal is, and believe it or not, a lot of people don't want to admit this is the case. The college presidents, especially in these black colleges in Mississippi and the South, are hand-picked men and women in the public schools. We call these colleges that we're referring to public colleges. And they also have another group that's private college, and these are picked by board of trustees, and it usually consists of their friends, someone they know, someone that's been in the same sorority or fraternity as some of the members in the board of directors, or someone they know that works at a so-called big school somewhere that has 3 to 5 years left to retire. Whether they are officially trained or not to be a president, they might be trained to be a dean or a vice president. There's a lot of difference between dean skills and vice president skills when it comes to managing a big college or university where you have all the spheres of influence under your wings, and you have to know how to manage and delegate all those areas. So what the board does, the public boards in the South, they usually handpick someone that they know that have some flaws because they don't want to get a strong man or a strong woman in position of power where they can make decisions. Even though they give them budgets, that's not going to help them very much. They don't have enough money to do what they need to do, but they have had black presidents in Mississippi that had 5 to 10 years of economic importance in their schools. They kept them afloat. They would get new subjects, accredited. But as soon as they start trying to tell the boards that we need to do more and start competing with the white colleges and universities, that's when they will find a way to ask those people to resign or invite them to a board meeting and just give them their papers and tell them goodbye. That has happened many times with Dr. Peoples, Washington down there in Walter Washington down at Alcorn, and several others. Now, as long as they would do what they were told to do and didn't exert any independence, they could stay there until they died. And we had one years ago at Jackson State. I believe his name, not Ramsey, it'll come to me, but he was a good president up until he started being bold. And he was old enough to retire, and they had him to fade out, because he was doing exactly what the white folks wanted him to do. During that period, students were not given opportunity to protest in the black colleges and universities. They didn't have any black universities at the time. And if you did so, he would automatically dispel you within minutes. Say, you go and pack up right now without any hearing or anything. And a lot of those students would end up at Tougaloo and other colleges and universities.
Well, let's take them one at a time. Because I get some of what you're saying, but I'm not getting it fully. Let's take Tougaloo College. The president of Tougaloo College announced that June 30th would be her last day as president of the Eagle Queen. Now, she's been there less than a year, or maybe around a year.
Yeah, a little longer.
A little longer than that, but certainly not 2 years. Now, Tougaloo is not controlled by IHL or the College Board. It's a private black-run school.
Correct.
It may get a lot of white money. It may have relationships with colleges like Millsap, etc., and a beneficiary of a lot of philanthropists, but it's supposed to be independently controlled. I'm told that the alumni said that she should be replaced because of decline in enrollment. Now, does that make any sense to you?
Well, it makes a lot of sense for the alumni to want to have a school that's productive and competitive, but now it's not good that they would do that. Their job should be to get with their president and say, I understand these are the problems. The students are facing these problems. Community people say you have these problems at your institution. Your board, your school board of trustees know that you're having problems. Now let's get together and resolve them. Major problems, 5. Let's work on one at a time and keep you here. You have some tenure, you have some seniority, you have the skills and ability, and we want you to stay with us. So what they do, they go and get rid of those kind of folks, because when they hired them, they knew they had a what I call limited budget. They knew they had millions of dollars worth of infrastructure that need to be addressed financially. They knew that the student enrollment had to fall due to the COVID era because they didn't have a lot of people on campus. They didn't have much money. And then when your buildings are not inhabited, they have a tendency to decay more faster, as you know. So here is a new president coming into an institution, no money, failing infrastructure, don't have good, strong contacts on the outside, getting a few $1,000s here and there. You couldn't hardly pay your salary at these private institutions. You very seldom got a raise, and you couldn't maintain the student body because they would get scholarships at other places, and instead of attending a private black college, many would go to a public white college and black ones where they can get that grant and have work-study jobs and be able to stay there and not have so many economic problems that they had to think about working 30 and 40 hours a week at a local business and make the minimum wage. Those are the problems that these private black colleges have to deal with when it comes to students. They can't fix the dormitories. They can't fix the cafeterias to the point. They can't buy the foods they need. They don't have the labs in science and others that's going to be adequate so when they finish school they can be competitive with other schools at Brown University and Millsaps, Ole Miss, and others, because the Board of Trustees on the local level at these private schools don't raise the monies they need. They just want, many of them want to be on the board for the resume purposes. I'm on the board of this college, this university, but they don't contribute. Every board member ought to be given from $10,000 to $100,000 for the ability and the recognition they had to be asked to get on the board.
Now, Doc, we had a young African-American male that was surpassed the president of Jackson State University. I don't believe he lasted a year.
Well, it was a little while. He didn't last too long. And that's another situation where you have the board deciding who the president would be of these black institutions. Now, this man, as you know, was a lawyer. He was passed the bar a long time ago, and he got into education as what I call the special assistant to the previous president. So I'm of the opinion that he knew something about administering a total university, and when he got the chance to do that, I'm quite sure they said, well, you're working as the assistant to the president we had to get rid of. Won't you take the job? It appears that they didn't do a search to find someone that already had a previous presidency where they had done a great job for 3 to 5 years. They didn't get none of those folks. They wanted someone that they could control that didn't have the total experience of operating a major university. Jackson State University is a major urban university, and you have to have someone with experience, expertise, and the ability to delegate to get things done.
Now, Doc, I hear you loud and clear. But each incident, there was a cry out from the students or the alumni or from African Americans to replace the leadership. There was no vote of confidence at the president of Jackson State by the faculty at JSU.
That's right.
And so on a young president in his first term, didn't last a couple years, before he got a no vote of confidence by faculty and senate. Black folk turning against black folk. Over at Tougaloo College, the president there declining enrollment, black folk turn on black folk. When we see this happening in our city council, we see this happening in our supervisors meeting, and so we're seeing it everywhere. So there's a movement here for black folk to turn on black folk. Now, the president at Alcorn State University resigned. She hadn't been there much longer than a year.
That's right, very short period.
Very short period of time. And then now she's gone. So that's 3 presidents of all 3 of our universities in Mississippi. Our HBCUs have had 3 presidential changes, and I don't know about Valley up there, but they might have a new president as well.
Well, let me tell you the other problem that a lot of people don't want to admit exists. Now, just because one was not a president prior to accepting a job at one of these black colleges, many times you find that they find that there is a problem. I know what the problem is, they say. So they make get requisitions together, they get policies together, they get proposals together and present them to the board, and the board look at them, I'm talking about the IHL board, and don't address those policies. They don't give them what they need to maintain. So when you get a situation, you're in a dormitory that's 40 years old, had a water problem in Jackson and all over Hinds County for the last 5 or 6 years. They were not able to maintain those dormitories. You had problems in the cafeteria with several vendors moving and others coming in. So therefore, the students were not happy. They couldn't have the opportunity to feel good and comfortable, and they would talk to their friends at other universities, especially the white universities in Mississippi and the South, and they would tell them about all the good food they had, nice dormitories and nice structures on campus, and all the great speakers that had come there. But those students are just a part of the mix. They have no ability to be in leadership positions at these white schools. If they find a high yellow student that's super smart, they might let him get into student council. And once every 10 years, they might let one become the student president of the student council or the student senate. But those guys usually are from the talented 10th family that had a good chance to get a good education at some of the black or white colleges. Their parents usually were the affirmative action students in the 1960s and 70s that went to those schools.
Is there some correlation between this high yellow concept you got and the talented 10?
Of course, it's all together. Du Bois was mulatto. Booker T. Washington, the man he disagreed with publicly and in private, was a real black man, as we call it. Look at the pictures. I don't like to say that, people get embarrassed, but if you look at Du Bois' picture and Booker T. Washington, you see a totally different black man. The way they dressed, the way they talked, the way they walked, all different. Their orientation, where they came from, economically, socially. Instead of working together, they had a conflict. And they could have easily resolved that issue by Booker T. Washington and Du Bois getting together, looking at their proposals, and say, we're going to make a compromise here, and I'm going to get the top people in your trades, Mr. Washington, and get them prepared to go to these schools to become lawyers and doctors and scientists. And I'm going to get these students here that's in the talented 10th to work at your universities and practice law part-time and teach your students, and eventually you can have a law school or medical school at your university, but they didn't do that.
Well, you said we're looking at 2 different black men.
Of course.
And I think today we have a lot of different black men.
We most certainly do.
We're different.
Now we find the differences in politics. That's the major flaw we have with all this turmoil politically in Mississippi and in the South and in some of the other big so-called black cities where the black people can't get together. They have formed cliques, and they don't believe in delegating their non-abilities to people that can solve the problem. For instance, if they need a contractor that can solve some problems, and they have already been financed by others in the community that had previously had contracts for 10 and 15 and 20 years with the county and the city, they have to go to them. Because when you give a politician, and I know this from experience, 5 or more $1,000, you're supposed to be able to control him. You're supposed to call him and get what you want, and you're supposed to have his private line. So therefore, you find a lot of turmoil when you have some politicians that don't have the power and the clout and the connection with the people that control the city. They want to do something for the people. And anybody that's a good politician that's out of office want to control the people in office so they can get the contracts. So they're going to at least keep a majority on their payroll, and they can get everything they want and don't even have to vote.
So we got this crazy divide going on, and we got to solve this problem.
That's right.
Now,
That's not hard to do. That's not hard to do.
You know, what's the story with Utica?
Utica
Junior College.
Junior College? Well, that's the same deal. It was a private college back in the early 1900s, around 1907, started around that period in the early, I'd say the first decade of the 1900s. Black man came down with a couple of dollars and a bicycle, and I think he sold his bicycle to get a couple of dollars to come on down here in Utica. He was not well accepted. He started his class, the first one, on a log, and eventually he built a little shack for his wife and his family, and that's where some of the students lived until they could build some so-called dormitories and other structures. And he started off with nothing in the middle of nowhere. If you would go down to Utica now, that area was like a swamp when he started there in the 1800s. The white folks didn't want him. Some of the black folks doubted him because they were penal farm people working on those plantations. Most of them didn't own land, but when he finished there, after about 15 or 20 years, most of the black folks in the Utica area owned their own land, and many of their families still do today.
Now we're going to go to a station break. We're going to come back and continue this conversation on our last segment, and we're going to try to bring some solution to these problems. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippi.com and click on Home Delivery.
Are you dreaming? Becoming an entrepreneur, but you're not sure where or how to start? At Entrepreneurs Academy 101, our online program will guide you step by step on how to start and grow your own business. We offer courses such as how to write a business plan, how to create a budget, and so much more. Our online training program is designed for you to learn at your own pace, and there's no set order to complete this program. Because our academy is online, you have the choice to learn with a group, with friends, or individually. Upon completion of the entire curriculum, you will receive a certificate of achievement to acknowledge that you have completed the training needed to become a successful entrepreneur. So enroll today to design the life that you love. Contact your entrepreneur coach, Brenda Myers, at 601-672-0695 or visit our website at www.entrepreneursacademy101.com for more information.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. We have a subscription campaign going on, and we need your help. If you're watching us on We Believe digital platform, go down and select the category that you want to watch shows under. This show is under the category of Hot Topics, and you will see us live right there, right now. If you scroll down further, you'll see We Believe Digital Radio. You can click on there tonight at 1 a.m. and listen to some of the best music that you ever wanted to listen to. We are also associated with Smooth 100.5. And so you get all kinds of benefits when you deal with We Believe Digital. We have our own internet radio station that I was talking about that's broadcasting live all over the world. We have the Mississippi Link newspaper in our print edition. We got 16 bars in our recording studio. We got Prime Stone Media in charge of our filming department. So if you're out there and you want to spend some money in the black community, you want to try and make a difference, then invest in small businesses that are trying to make it go. We can't invest in all of these nonprofits. That's what we got going on in the black community right now. Everybody is running as a nonprofit. Even for-profit businesses are losing money, and when you're losing money, you are a nonprofit. If you want to, Dr. Henderson want to show you how to start a nonprofit, I can show you how to start one today. Just start losing money. You'll be a nonprofit. And so we got all of that going on in our community, and we need your help. So if you're there in New York City, and you are with CBS or NBC, and you want to make a difference, then invest in We Believe Digital. Invest and help us be the training institution for African Americans that can't get to Hines Junior College or Jackson State University or Tougaloo. You see, most of our people in our community can't get to the college campus. They don't have anything to wear. They don't have any transportation to get them there. So we can't be like Du Bois. We can't say that just give me the talented 10th and the 90% can fight for themselves. That's what's got this great divide right now. That's why we got all these killings going on in the inner cities right today, because of this great divide. The talented 10th in the black community moved to the suburbs with the white folk. The 90% that remain is raising a boatload of hell. It's raising this hell because of the lack of leadership and role models in our community. So when you pick up on someone trying to do something, We Believe Digital is one, but there are others out there that you can choose from, invest in that business. Help them grow that nature. It does a couple things that are very important. It puts a role model in the community that our kids can look up to. 100 black men said, what they see, they will be. If they can't see it, all they see is drug dealers and somebody getting locked up and somebody over the hood of a car. That's just like marching through a cemetery every day going to elementary school. You just can't focus on being about anything and becoming anybody. Your future is sealed. It's doomed. They might as well get your bed ready in Parchment, Mississippi in the 3rd grade. They know who you are. They know where you'll be when you turn 16. Not because of your DNA, not because of the color of your skin, but because of the conditions that you live in. They know where you will be. And sadly enough, Mississippi has the highest number of incarcerations per capita than any country in the world. I hate to say that, but it's true. We lock up more people than any place in the world. But it's not solving anything. The only thing that it did was create another industry, another economic engine for somebody that doesn't look like me. Private prisons. Now we're going to pay you to have beds, even if you don't have people. That's a business model. Prisons, 3 meals a day. Somebody's got a food contract to prepare all this food off of the backs of our young black boys. Clothing. Somebody has got a contract to provide all of them green and whites that you see. Orange and white, whatever, Doc Henderson, you probably know more about them colors than me. That's a gang.
Of course.
And so all that takes money. Prisons, Costs money. Costs more to incarcerate an individual than to give him a education to become a doctor. Costs more to incarcerate him and lock him up and feed him and take care of his health insurance and break up his family and turn out another gangster. We got a lot going on wrong, and it's permeating the black community to the point that I don't like Dr. Henderson, because I just don't like him. I don't know why I don't like him. I just don't like him. And I'm going to stand up to say I'm opposed to whatever he's going to say even before I know what he's going to say. Because we just have turned on one another. Now, Doc, yes, you said we're going to give solutions and walk some of this out, as Jones says. To turn the tide, I want you to paint a picture for me when our city council will be unified, when our board of supervisors will be unified, when our black legislators in the House, in the Senate, in the highest county delegation will be unified, and when we will begin to see prosperity in our community to turn things around. I want you to tell me when and how that's going to happen.
Well, I can tell you when and how it can happen. It has to happen within 7 years. If you look at the black situation in Mississippi, the South, and the nation, wherever you have a majority of black people, they ought to be controlled in certain areas of activity, and one is politics, of course, and economic development. That will not happen with the current people we have in office, elected and appointed. And we looked at it, from 16 to 30% of the voters put people in office in Mississippi, 16 to 30%. And I've been telling you all for a long time that people in office don't fear the voters because they know most are not going to vote. So the citizens and people in the community organizations, the neighborhood associations, the churches and others have to get together and train their own leaders, high school students, college students, recent graduates that have finished college and universities. Train those people and put them in a position after they train them so they can become the mayors, the sheriffs, aldermen, city council people. But you first have to organize a community organizations, or you might want to call it a community civic league, or anything you want to call it. You don't want to start a new political party. That's not necessary, because you want your people to be put in any position you choose or they choose, regardless of party. All you want is the person that has the ability to perform, one that has been trained, that's not in a position to get rich, and one that has the ability to delegate and get people to do the things that need to be done. Most politicians don't know very much about managing political entities. They only have skills in one area, in law, accounting, education, or training. But they don't have it in all the parameters that they need as they try to manage the city. So you don't put your friends and unqualified people in those positions, and you don't let other people call you and tell you who to appoint. That is the problem in the county, in the city, and in these big towns and big cities throughout the nation where blacks and whites are in control. So we need to start in the South first, where we're in the majority, and control these political entities.
Well, I want to take exception to your die-out strategy. I thought we used that strategy with racism, and back in the day when you and I were coming along in the 60s and the 50s and 60s and 70s, we'd say, well, these old heads are going to die out and things are going to change. And you say that the black elected politicians of today are going to stay in office
as long as they can, because they have no reason to get out of office when they have no serious opponents. The same 16 to 30% going to vote for the current people in office, and that's why the solution is to ignore those folks, work with them as long as you can, and help them get out of office and replace them with people that are trained to be community leaders and people focused, instead of being able to do the same thing, be controlled by the special interests, and then you will have the same problems. infrastructure, water, police. And then the legislature in the South and in the nation then going to pass all kind of laws to dilute the vote and cut black people out and poor whites. But they don't worry about the poor whites because they know they have them locked in just like they have the blacks locked in.
So let me ask you this. This thing that's happening to black folk is better displayed with Clarence Thomas.
That's a fact.
You see it there, even when the Supreme Court said that the lines had been drawn to deny blacks the opportunity to elect a black man. Thomas voted against it.
Well, Thomas is their man. You know Thomas wasn't qualified to be a Supreme Court justice. You were looking at his hearings many years ago. That boy was selected because he was a conservative, black, self-hated individual. He hated himself and black people. And read the books about him. Read the books.
How does a black man get to be that way?
Well, because he's not happy. He's not satisfied. He knows there's a lot of racism in his family. They done seen his people suffer. And he has the ability, educationally and physically, to do better. And he wanted to do it. So he had to say, I'm going to get out of here and fit in. And I can't fit in and act like I'm a black militant. I got to act as a submissive person and get with these white schools and be against my people so I can be the chosen one. And that's exactly what he did.
And so you then go out and get your white wife and then you turn completely on the black race?
Of course, that's what they do. Most of the athletes and most of the big-time black businessmen have done the same thing.
Doc,
because they feel more accepted. And they usually get better opportunities. I hate to admit it, but that white wife they have has white business friends and others that's going to throw a crumb to their black husband as long as he doesn't say anything that's going to help black people. But now if he does that, he's out of business within 30 days. Oh. He might even lose his basketball or football position.
So as long as he has a white wife and he acts a certain way and doesn't try to help his people in any way, he can retain his standard.
That's right, and set up a foundation and have, I'm going to use the one that we all know about, and have some football or basketball camps or tennis camp, and have the middle-class white boys and girls to come to that camp and put 2 or 3 blacks in there from a poor school in the same county. And then when they show it on TV, he is skinning and grinning and batting and running and directing and coaching the little white boys and girls that's from the rich private school in the same county. And the little blacks standing around there looking, hoping they get a chance to be on TV.
A black man?
No, the little black kids that's in the camp. That's right.
Right. So, Doc, we got to put it out on the table. I don't want you to hold back. We got to put it out on the table. We got to figure this out. Once we identify that a brother has been compromised, what strategy should we take? I mean, I understand that you're a church-going man, so I understand that you believe in redemption and salvation, and redemption is a path that we could take.
But not 100% in certain cases. I'm sort of like Jesus. Jesus was a very good man until you start sinning and not asking for a chance to repent. He'll tell you, I'm going to have you go into hell, boy. Say, you can't be saved. You can't come up here. So you have to get with those kind of people and let them know you're not appreciative of what they are doing, but you have to do this in private, like they did during the 60s when they would call these people in that was Uncle Toms in the community and say, now, the white folks been running people out of town for centuries here in Mississippi. Some found themselves in the Big Black River, in the Pearl River. They're hanging them in the forest and so forth. Now, if you don't want the same thing to happen to you, John Brown, you better get your black family and go to Chicago. I mean, the black people talking to them. Say, now, you are ruining these plans. Say, we have a corrective action plan to integrate these towns, integrate the city government, and you got your wife and your family and some of your church members over there buying at the white store, and we're supposed to be boycotting it.
So you use the term Uncle Tom. It's a term I hadn't heard in a long time. are there Uncle Toms today, or you don't have to be a Tom today? I mean, the Tom was giving information soon
to the white people that was managing their lives.
He was giving information.
That was his job.
And so
that was his job.
we find that happen today on a large scale.
Of course, I know a lot of them.
And but we don't ever hear anybody call anybody
Well,
Uncle Tom.
that is not a good word to use these days.
Okay.
You're supposed to use that in private. But I know a lot of them that's alive today, and you know some of them. I wouldn't dare call their names in public.
Well, you're talking about that, but I'm talking about there's some 25-year-old Uncle Toms.
Of course, because their mothers and daddies were Uncle Toms and are Uncle Toms. It's just like being a Catholic or a Baptist or a watermelon eater. Whatever you are raised on, that's what you do.
Oh, I gotta think about that one for sure.
Well, you do that.
You a watermelon eater.
I'm using that as an analogy.
I get that.
You don't eat finger food if you're born in an environment where you have peanuts, watermelons, pig feet, pigtails, pig heads, chicken backs, chicken feet. You don't go and eat shrimp and mallet. You don't eat buffalo. You don't eat steaks. If somebody put a steak in front of you and you haven't seen one in your life, you wouldn't know whether to cut it, pull it up and throw it down and beat it and stomp on it, or cut it with an axe, or just grab the thing and start eating it. You wouldn't know what to do with it.
You would have a moment that you would have to make a decision.
You would have to make a decision.
I'm reminded that, and that's culturally deprived.
Of course.
And economically deprived, where you don't know. I wouldn't know caviar if you put it in front of me.
That's right. What is this?
What is this?
Matter of fact, you probably wouldn't eat it.
Probably
because
wouldn't.
It looks new, and the little old fish eggs better not be moving around up in there. You say, man, what is this?
No fish eggs.
What is this?
And so, but I don't want no chitlins either.
Well, you don't want chitlins if you're middle class, if you're in public. But since most of us came from the poor environment, you were raised on chitlins if you lived in the South. But when you get to college, you don't profess that you love chitlins. And I lived in Atlanta for a while and messing around with a lot of those middle class Negroes. Every time they had a big party outside of the church or the school or their businesses, they served chitlins, and when any of them eat them in public, they would take them home with them.
Now we run out of time.
And I was one of them.
We got to continue this conversation. There are a lot of ills in our community, and we got to solve them. We're going to solve them because we're going to talk about them, we're going to call it out, and we're going to have to identify some examples of what we're talking about. Today we talked about Clarence Thomas. I was very disheartened with his position on the Supreme Court as it ruled against the state of Alabama on drawing those district lines. If a black man votes against that, it tells me that we cannot depend on our blackness to stand with us in times of trouble. Then the question becomes, who stands with us? Who stands with us? If we can't depend on us, if you can't depend on your pastors and your preachers in leadership roles, and once we put you on the Supreme Court, we can't depend on you then, who stands with Pookie and Junior? Who stands with them, Doc? And who stands with economic deprivation?
Sir, you have to look at who handles those people, who own those people, who contribute to their campaigns, who give them rides on airplanes, who can call them and say, buy this stock, it's going to be cheap tomorrow. Those that say, I will help you survive, I will buy you a house, I will give your child a scholarship to one of the local universities, I will do this for you. So you think those people not going to call those bosses and say, well, we got this big old case here in the Supreme Court or in the Circuit Court or in the legislature, and I tell you, my base, the people that I represent, saying I need to take a certain position. And I told you this 2 weeks ago. Your job then is to ask your handler, how do you think I need to vote on this, sir? You know, you get nice then. How you think I need to vote on it? They say, you know how to vote on it, and don't call me no more.
We're going to get to this next week. We're going to close out now. We're running over a little bit. Doc, would you give us your closing remarks?
Well, I just thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Socrates, because I always like to talk to the people about solutions, and I try not to hesitate to give them facts and let them know that if they want to change their lives, they have to start being in control from birth to death in certain areas of activity where they are the majority, and change the current stature of those in office, the preachers and the politicians and certain corporate leaders, and put their own people in office. And in 7 years, you'll see a significant difference because you have people afraid of you. When you can control your economic destiny and you control the politics in your area and be your own person and vote for things that you are interested in that's going to promote your interests, promote your family's interests, and fix you where you can have 2 or 3 generations of prosperity, people get afraid of you. And they will do their best to destroy you. But if you're strong enough, you will have the power to resist for 100 years or so.
Well, Doc, it's been great visiting with you this afternoon. Dr. Henderson is one of the best renowned speakers in the entire country. Doc, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, it's very simple. All you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear our real non-radio or TV version of our economic activities and our seminars and workshops, you call us at 601-201-1957. Every time we talk to you, ladies and gentlemen, at your schools, your community organization, or your church, whatever the topic is, we always have a solution that you can put in operation in 30, 60, or 90 days, and you can get rid of your preacher, you can get rid of your school superintendent, your principals, or the corporate leaders, if you choose, or you can accept it. It all depends on what you want. My job is to tell you how to solve your problems in 30, 60, 90 days with a prioritized corrective action plan, and you call us now if you want that to happen in your community. 601-201-1957.
You heard it here on We Believe Digital. Support this broadcast station. We need your help. Stay safe and have a good evening.